Ghana Tonight is brought to you by
Flamenco Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.
Sasso insecticide spray and coil. It's Ghana Tonight live here on TV3 and on 392.7 FM. I'm Keminni Amanor. Our top stories. Chairman Wontumi granted bail, but his affair with the law is far from over. Police investigate him for illegal mining, water pollution, and illegally entering a forest reserve. Tonight, what it all means for the fight against Galamsey. Also to come, massive cybersecurity breach uncovered at Ghana's Washington, D.C. mission. Tonight, Foreign Affairs Minister cracks the whip and temporarily shuts down the mission. Also ahead, Special Prosecutor takes a loss in court tonight. Details of that and other high-profile cases that were called in court earlier today. As always, your thoughts, your questions, your comments are welcome if you'd like to share them while we stream on x.com, facebook.com, YouTube, 3news.com, and on 392.7 FM. Do so with the hashtag Ghana Tonight. I am Keminni Amanor, and this is Ghana Tonight. Let's bring you a summary of the night's biggest stories.
Ashanti Regional Chairman of the New Patriotic Party, NPP, Bernard Entwi Bosiako, popularly known as Chairman Wontumi, has been granted bail of an undisclosed amount with two sureties. Chairman Wontumi voluntarily reported to the police CID headquarters on Monday, May 26, after a failed attempt to arrest him on Friday, May 22. Speaking to journalists, Chairman Wontumi said he was interrogated on issues of illegal mining.
Nase menye Galamsey enti me de me lances no e de kire omo ama omo hunu ye de to so bio omo sa ka se me ye adwuma e wo forest ano so me ka kire omo se enye me a me nkonko ye adwuma e wo forest bia mu ba ye so omo evidence a omo betimi e de a kire me.
President John Dramani Mahama has announced plans by government to reopen both the domestic and international capital markets geared towards revitalizing the bond market. Announcing an 8-point plan for economic reset, the president emphasized that future borrowing will be linked to self-financing and only commercially viable projects.
We're working to reopen Ghana's bond market in collaboration with the IMF and our development partners, the Ghana Stock Exchange and local banks. However, future borrowing will be linked to self-financing commercially viable projects, particularly by MDAs, MMDAs, and SOEs, ensuring value for money and sustainable repayment.
The government has approved electricity bill exemptions for key state institutions and sectors such as security, health, and education. Announced by Energy Minister Dr. John Abdullahi Jinapor, the policy aims to ensure uninterrupted services and will be funded through budgetary allocations. Only core operational units are covered, excluding non-essential facilities. The Kumasi High Court has acquitted President Akufo-Addo's nominee for Juabing MCE in 2021 on a bribery allegation case made against him by the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Alexander Kwabena Safo Kantanka was caught on video allegedly demanding a refund of money he gifted to assembly members to endorse his nomination as MCE.
At the end of the full trial, our case has been sustained by the court as reasonable probable, for which reason my client has been acquitted and discharged. There is no other damage control than a judgment of a court of competent jurisdiction saying that you are alleged to have done ABCD, but haven't gone through full trial, and the court of competent, like a high court, saying that no, you are not what you were alleged to be.
There is a growing demand for far-reaching actions to be taken in the visa fraud scandal uncovered at the Ghana's embassy in Washington, D.C. It follows a temporary closure of the embassy over a 5-year-long scheme where some personnel from the IT department redirected applicants to a private website for personal gain. Dr. Daniel Dramani Kipo Sunyezi is a senior research fellow at the Legon Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy, University of Ghana.
It should also be an eye-opener for the Minister of Foreign Affairs to look into the recruitment of temporary staff. They need to give them some orientation, some proper training before taking them to the foreign missions, so that we don't see them diverting funds and creating wrong links that could compromise the integrity of the country. So we need to look into the recruitment process. Whether temporal or permanent, we must give all of them very good training, in-service training. Ethical issues must be taken into
For senior
Well, Ghana brief there for you. Let's get into some real action tonight. Chairman Wontumi vehemently denies Galamsey accusations that landed him in police custody today. All that we know from that visit coming up now. Now, police is investigating Chairman Wontumi, the Ashanti Regional Chairman of the NPP, for mining without license, pollution of water bodies, and entering a forest reserve without authorization. Wontumi, known by his government name as Bernard Enchiboisiakon, was granted bail after 8 hours of interrogation at the Criminal Investigations Department. He was let go after meeting his bail conditions. If you recall, last Friday, a national security operation believed to be for Wontumi's arrest was conducted on his Paraku estate residence in the Ashanti region, but was foiled by party supporters. Now, in exchange for the operatives beating a retreat, his lawyer negotiated for Wontumi to turn himself in today, and indeed he did. Now, he arrived in the company of his legal counsel, Godfred Yeboah-Dame, and former member of parliament for Asante Achem North, Andy Appiah-Kubi. He didn't hold back, denying the accusations made against him. Take a look.
Galamsey, enti me de me lances no e de kire omo ama omo hunu ye. De to so bio omo sa ka se me ye adwuma e wo forest. Ano so me ka kire omo se enye me a.
I am not engaged in Galamsey. I showed them my license. They said I worked in forest, but I haven't worked in any forest. If they have any evidence, they should show it. They gave me bail with 2 sureties.
Enumu ana yewie no omo ema bail 2 sureties. Anya no kreda sama je cocoa board fosika. Obia no sa wo ko no wakwakoye road anya ban na mauska.
It is not true that I took money from Cocoa Board. If you're going to construct roads, government does not give you any money, but you rather use your money to construct the road. My contract with Cocoa Board has it that I should be paid within 28 days, but it took about 3 years before I was paid. So Cocoa Board cannot deny the fact that they owe me. Working or doing business is not a bad thing.
Me Cocoa Board for contract, ne wo mu say 28 days. They should pay me. But ye raise we no. It take about 3 years and say no omutua me ka. So Cocoa Board cannot tell me say now omo ni won to me ka. Obia no so obeye ketu obeye kesi o nam paso. So obia no kwakoye adwuma de. Medwen say adwuma nya de a eye bone.
Now, the question we're trying to answer tonight is whether or not that license he speaks about is the same one that the Lands and Natural Resources Minister, Emmanuel Amakufibua, cried about weeks ago. Recall that during that news conference, he shed some tears because of how the environment was being treated. It broke his heart. He narrowed down to Akonta Mining and how the license they had was being abused. Let's go back on memory lane.
Sorry. As you may recall, in our previous engagement, I stated that under the leadership of His Excellency President John Mahama, we remain unwavering in our commitment to eradicate the scourge of illegal mining, an environmental sin against humanity and against God. We promise to carry the good people of Ghana along with these periodic updates. And today I'm here to provide key developments in this fight. One of the most egregious cases we have uncovered involves Akonta Mining Company Limited, a company legally registered and granted a government lease to mine responsibly off reserve outside the forest. The company, however, does not possess an entry permit into the forest reserve of the Samabro Enclave of the Western North region. Yet, investigations reveal that Akonta Mining has flagrantly abused this lease. In August, as you recall, in August 2022, the Forestry Commission, with the assistance of the Ghana Police, made some arrests of persons associated with Akonta Mining, encroaching on the forest reserves, specifically Compact 161. The docket was supposedly transferred to Accra for further action, and yet nothing was heard of it. This company has not only trespassed into protected reserves, but has become a criminal syndicate, selling assets of the Aboye Forest Reserve to illegal miners for a staggering 300,000 Ghana cedi per concession. Worse, these illegal miners operate under Akonta's protection, devastating the river tunnel and surrounding forests with impunity. They have encroached compartments 49, compartment 121 of the Tanom Nimri Forest Reserve. We gathered a team of investigators to go undercover to make inquiries about the details of these operations. Our undercover team uncovered a well-oiled machinery of destruction.
So you hear the words that the minister only weeks ago described Akonta Mining's operations with: egregious, flagrant abuse of their licenses, a criminal syndicate. But of course, counsels for Akonta Mining come fighting back, and they denied every single allegation of wrongdoing the minister had spoken about at that news conference. Again, let's go back down on memory lane. And these are some of the things that lawyers for Akonta Mining wrote to the people of the Republic of Ghana about. First, they say, we are not responsible for the activities in the Tano Nimri Forest Reserve. That responsibility lies solely with the Forestry Commission and the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. They'll go on to say that it is deeply concerning that state institutions are shifting blame onto a private company that has never been granted access to the said forest area. The decision by the minister to publicly accuse us and call for the revocation of our license without any investigation or hearing is not just unfair, it is a clear breach of natural justice and politically motivated act. Now take note of that, because I'm going to come back to that. And then that statement also goes on to say, there's one last slide and then we're done. Goes on to say that we wish to assure the Ghanaian public that Akonta Mining has nothing to hide. And it would appear that Chairman Wontumi holds the same position after his 8-hour interrogation at CID. He has nothing to hide. He has given them the documentation for his mines. He has not entered any forest reserve, pretty much in tandem with what his lawyers had written about weeks ago. And very much contrary to what the Lands and Natural Resources Minister of the day, Emmanuel Amakofibua, had intimated to the Ghanaian people to go as far as call them a criminal syndicate. Now, there'll be more understanding to that. But I also want to bring to the fore that there's many sides to this Akonta Mining debacle. I can take you a little back further, because this will not be their first rodeo with the Lands and Natural Resources Minister. In the previous administration, Samuel Jinapor, then the Lands and Natural Resources Minister, also had cause to tell Akonta Mining to halt activities in the forest reserve. Again, very contrary to what Chairman Wontumi and his lawyers tell us, that we are not doing anything in a forest reserve. So let me show you what that letter that was written on the 30th of September 2022 said to Akonta Mining, right? Now, it was a press release, excuse me, not a letter. And you see from the heading that Minister directs Forestry Commission to halt Akonta Mining Limited's operations in the Tano Nimri Forest Reserve. The question will be why. Now, let's go on to read, because it says that our attention has been drawn to publication about certain operations by Akonta Mining Limited in the Tano Nimri Forest Reserve in the Amenfi West municipality of the Western region. Records available to the ministry shows that while Akonta Mining Limited has a mining lease to undertake mining operations in some parts of Samreboy outside the forest reserve, the company has no mineral right to undertake any mining operation in the Tano Nimri Forest Reserve. And then that statement will go on to say that our records show that the Akonta Mining on 25th August 2022 applied for a mining lease to undertake mining operations in the said forest reserve, Tano Nimri Forest Reserve, right? By a ministerial directive, all reconnaissance, prospecting and/or exploratory activities in forest reserves in the country are suspended except in exceptional circumstances. Now, although this directive does not affect mining in forest reserves, Akonta Mining's limited application has not been determined. Accordingly, any alleged activity being undertaken by that company in the forest reserve is illegal. So it's not the first time that a minister has raised concerns about the activities of Akonta Mining in a forest reserve. This is the same forest reserve. You carry on a few years on, the now Lands and Natural Resources Minister is also raising questions about. Now, it begs a lot of questions. Between then and now, have there been any licensing issue? The Minister of the Day seems to have a response to that when he tells us that Akonta Mining is going into the forest without it. Now, so these are two sides of the story where investigations will have to determine whether or not there is truth to either Akonta Mining's version or Chairman Wontumi's version or the Lands and Natural Resources Minister. But again, I will stick with this Akonta Mining issue down memory lane, because we also know how confidently, how powerfully the former president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, came out, if nothing short of emphatic, to say that Akonta Mining was not doing anything illegal. And this was after the 30th September 2022 press release from Samuel Jinapor to the public about how he had asked them to halt working in the said forest reserve, assuming it's true based on what the statement is saying. Let's take a look at that.
Let me respond briefly to the chairperson. on the issue of illegal mining. I want to assure him and all of you that Akonta Mining is not engaged in any illegal mining anywhere in Ghana as we speak.
Former President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo there. Now, all of this happened before the last few weeks. We've seen the Natural Resources Minister complain about Akonta Mining and describing them as a criminal syndicate, allegedly. Now, let's get into a conversation with the coalition against illegal mining in this country, a group of CSOs who have come together to fight galamsey in the country. Now, they wrote to the minister after this, calling for the arrest of Chairman Wontumi and bringing a stop to Akonta Mining's activities. There I also mentioned that at that news conference, the minister had indicated that they will look into suspending the license of Akonta Mining. It's unclear what has happened since then. We have to put that on record. But I'll bring in now Edem Senanu, who is the co-chair of Citizens Movement Against Corruption, one of those CSOs. And then also I have Senyo Hosi, a very famous face here on TV3. He's also a member of the Ghana Coalition Against Galamsey. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here. It's been a long road to get into this interview. But I'll start off with you, Senyo. You called for the arrest. It would appear something is happening. Are you impressed?
Thank you so much, Keminni. We definitely call for the arrest. And it's a fair question to ask if we are impressed. We are impressed that the steps being taken. We are not too impressed by the pace at which these steps have been taken. I think it's a little delayed, but it's not too late for us to have justice for our environment, for the future of our country, and for our children's children. We are not in for any victimization of anybody. It's nobody's interest. I don't know Chairman Wontumi. I don't really care much about him. I care about the future of our country. We care about the environment. We care about the world we live for our children and our children's children. So whoever is liable would have to be dealt with. So we're just calling for this matter to be effectively addressed. This started with the great work from Erastus Asaridonko, who exposed this matter sometime last year or 2 years, I think 2 years ago. Following that, we had the ministry under some Gina Paul's leadership. He's telling us what the facts were, that they had no rights to be in the forest reserves. They had something a bit close to it, but not there. They are trespassed, according to the reports we had received. We expected the government to investigate and come out with a thorough report. We did not see that. Clearly, politics had eroded policy wisdom in this country at the time. We are expecting proper action this time. It's taking a while, which makes very little sense, but we are where we are. If government is taking action, we don't want to see any comic relief. We want to see action. If Wontumi is not, or Akonta Mining and his directors are not liable for what's happened, they should be let go. They should have their say and their day in court. If they are liable, they should see action. We can't have a whole cabinet minister on this subject matter call a whole press conference, tell us that the state led and deployed its resources to investigate and find these things out, for which a docket is supposed to have been packaged, and then we just come here and make it some media charade. No, that's not going to happen. We need people to be held accountable for these acts of illegal, and get it right, not just illegal, but also irresponsible mining. So I hear Wontumi when he says he showed that he had a license. Okay, if you had a license, did you have a license to work in that place? Did you have a license to work in that place in the way you did? That is, if he was the one who did it. These are things that the investigation must show and the prosecution must show. And justice to the people of Ghana must be accrued. And fairness in the process must also be accrued to Wontumi. He's a Ghanaian. So in all this, while there has been a lot more public prosecution of him and Akonta Mining, this is when we must bring real flesh and proper truth to the matter and settle it. He's entitled to a fair trial, and we will all fight for his defense on that. We don't expect this to become a political matter. So I advise the NPP to stop talking about it because they are not representatives or directors of the Akunta mining. They should focus on making sure that every citizen in this country gets a fair trial, including Wontumi, that I fully align with them on. But this matter must be resolved once and for all. Having said that, you rightly recalled that we petitioned the government, the IGP as well, to resuscitate this matter, get into it and resolve it once and for all. You're right. But we also called on the government to investigate the matters of the Awin MP and the chairman of the NDC in Axim as well, because of the reports that have been brought up publicly. Those reports and investigations have also not been submitted. So while we look forward to a successful prosecution of Akunta mining, if the information we have is accurate, for which they must be liable, we also look forward to a complete investigation and a consequential the prosecution, depending on the facts accrued on the other NDC stalwarts who are also being named in this entire Galamsey enterprise.
Very well, Senor. I want to take it to Edem now. And Edem, I want you to strike a balance between all that, in fact, among all that has happened in the last week up until today. I mean, we see the strategy to go to his home, try to get him from his home, and that didn't work. He appeared before the police today. Some have questioned whether or not that could have been the first port of call instead of the Rambo style that was employed earlier. Now, how do we, in your own analysis, right? What do you see when Chairman Wontumi turns around to accuse the government of witch hunting, and then on the other hand, a police that has not essentially charged him yet, but only cautioned him on issues like polluting water bodies, and entering a forest reserve without authorization, and then also mining without license? Your thoughts on that?
Well, thank you. You speak as if the entering the forest without license, mining are minor issues, but they are not. They are grievous engagements by Akunta Mining and its associates. I find this very important because, you see, we are not just talking about the entry and the actions that are considered to be criminal. We are talking about the impunity. And I speak like this because I was part of the 4 people in 2022. After about 6 weeks of media reportage, and it seemed like the story wasn't going away, we decided to go to the CID headquarters to find out what is being done about this. I arrived there on a Friday together with Martin Bebu, and we were told that no citizen had made a report, so the police had done nothing. And that was shocking for us. We went back on Monday, filed a complaint on behalf of the people of this country. 2022 up to 2025, absolutely nothing was done. Indeed, a few days ago, I was speaking on one of my platforms saying that the lack of actions is a systems failure. And the fact that we needed a new government before we started hearing anything about this is frightening for me. How many other cases where we've had clear evidence of impunity, the minister categorically stated, Jinapo, that they had no permission, no license to get into the space they had. Then the Minerals Commission said the same thing. Are we saying that all these institutions and ministers got it wrong and that for 3 years, there was no action? In fact, we met the Deputy Commissioner of Police. We met the head of Criminal Investigations, Ghana. And for 3 years, no feedback. It is the impunity that makes me very worried. And to the extent that now government is taking an action, whichever means, where if it started with police, it's been invited, I think it is important. Because what we have done indirectly is that there are groups of persons who believe that they have the law in this country. They believe they can be politically shielded. They believe they can do whatever, and they can come back and speak in public. How many, I mean, is it possible the minister got it wrong, Minerals Commission got it wrong, the current minister too got it wrong, the documentary they provided also got it wrong? Come on, that cannot be possible. And so I am delighted that actions are being taken. I think it's about time that these criminal activities and impunity is dealt with as seriously as possible to send a message to those who think that, look, they have the right to sell Ghana and get away with it.
Senor, how do you see this case progressing from here?
Hello, Keminni, were you talking to me?
Yes, I was asking how you see this case progressing from here.
I think that from the press release we got from the police, I mean, there is clear direction in the matter. He's been invited to come back tomorrow. I'm sure the estate is trying to will definitely be comparing the facts as they have as against his own representations. He gave his statement today. That's perfect. And going forward, we expect a prosecution in a couple of days. If not so, the state must clearly come and tell us why Akunta Mine and its directors should be off the hook. As far as we are concerned, the information and the intelligence we have suggests that the state has enough evidence to actually initiate some prosecution against Akunta Mining and its directors. I would nonetheless encourage the media folks. This fight has been sustained because of the support we got from you. This fight actually started because of the coalition, the spirit of unity that we got from the entire media fraternity way back in 2017. Let's not lose that. Continue to support this fight. As we are dealing with Akunta Mining today, and there want to be consequentially, we must also not relent on our call against for the completion of investigations against the Awin MP and the NDC chairman for Axim as well. If the political class cannot be reined in, we are doomed. If our president and the government of the day can rein in its own political appointees, it will be the strongest sign that this government is taking no political prisoners. And we are going to deal with this matter fiercely, as the president has already said.
Adam, you have the final word in our conversation. You know, much more than what we see today, particularly who's representing Chairman Wontumi, who flunked him when he was going to the CID. Senor has just told us that, look, we're looking forward to this progressing and prosecution even coming through if actual evidence is found. But do you worry that perhaps the involvement of political actors could turn this over on its head?
That is always the worry. It's always a concern that, look, the political posturing and taking of entrenched positions doesn't help us. And I think that our political class should be so minded. I wish we didn't have former AGs and whatnot positioning or having to be the persons speaking on behalf or representing people. I think that if we had neutral parties, it will help clean up the space. And it's important. I mean, yes, we know that it doesn't mean that there is necessarily an intent or an association, but just for the purpose of ensuring that we don't begin to entrench certain perceptions that then don't augur well for us. Senor hits it on the nail when he says that the most important thing for us is when within the government of the day, they are able to hold accountable persons who have been fingered or cited. And we can clearly see transparency in the processes of investigation and drawing the conclusion that these persons are culpable or not culpable and therefore should be let go. So, for example, this NDC chairman who has been listed, what actions will be taken? Will we have transparency and arrive at a conclusion that if he is culpable, he should face the full rigors of the law? It's important because for us, 3 years of nothing is a systems failure. A systems failure that tells you that the political class have reached a point where they have buffed everything and they believe they can get anywhere by rubbing each other's backs. We don't need to continue down that trajectory. We need to take actions to stem that immediately, and we have an opportunity under this government to do that as part of their reset agenda. Let's see actions taken against their own, even in this dispensation. That will send a clear message.
Adam Senano, Senor Hosi, gentlemen, thank you so much for talking to me today. And I appreciate your time with us. Listen, let's turn attention to something else, because massive security breach has forced the government to temporarily shut down Ghana's Washington mission. Tonight, a keen look at how this could be the case for 5 whole years. Now that's right, 5 years. That's how long a staff of Ghana's Washington, D.C. embassy allegedly diverted visa applications to his private company and charged a little extra for visa services. Now, Foreign Affairs Minister Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa made the shocking revelations on his social media handles when he made the announcement of a temporary closure of the mission in Washington, D.C. Let's hear the minister in his own voice when he pushed it earlier on his social media. Really straight to the point when he talks about the president, giving him the go-ahead to do to take the action, rather very difficult action to close the mission in Washington, D.C. Now, first he says that unauthorized diversion of visa and passport applicants to Ghana travel consultants, charging from $29.75 to $60 US per applicant. So they were charging a little more than what was supposed to go to the mission or the consular section of the mission. Now, investigations also revealed that one Fred Kwarting from the IT department and his collaborators operated this illegal scheme for at least 5 years. Now, they also the conduct has since been reported to the Attorney General for possible prosecution and retrieval of funds obtained through fraudulent schemes. All Ministry of Foreign Affairs staff posted to the Washington Embassy recalled home with immediate effect. That's one of many actions that have been taken as a result of this. We also know that there's been a dissolution of the embassy's IT department. All locally recruited staff have now been essentially suspended. We also know that the Auditor General has now been invited to conduct a forensic examination of all transactions and to determine the total cost of this elaborate fraudulent scheme. Ghana's embassy in Washington, for that matter, will be closed. And take note, it doesn't say indefinitely. It says for a few days from today, as we finalize the ongoing restructuring and systems overhaul. But what does it all mean, right? It's important to put it into perspective. So we've been calling somebody who knows a lot about this. Former Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister Emmanuel Bombande joins us now for a bit more on this. Thank you so much, Mr. Bombande. But listen, you've heard a story based on, the narration of the minister and how this scheme ran for 5 whole years. What analysis have you made of these rather worrying revelations?
Thank you so much, and good evening to all your viewers. As you rightly described it, it is completely alarming. It's a crime of the nature of a brazen and unrestrained conduct by the type of officials we have in our diplomatic missions. Now, keep in mind that our diplomatic missions, such as the embassy in Washington, is Ghana's face, Ghana's presence in our bilateral relationships with the United States that involves quite a number of different layers of engagement. And so it's not just about the crime, but it's about the trust that is broken by officials who should carry out their duties in representing Ghana with the utmost integrity in helping and support the foreign minister to be able to engage in the type of relationship between Ghana and the United States that will be of benefit to the citizens of Ghana, but also the citizens of the United States. So my observation is one that is of shock. And I think that if you look at the nature of the crime, it also has the complicity, or you might describe it as other people being an accomplice, being accomplices.
I see.
Now, those details, we probably do not have it.
Indeed, we do not have those details at this time, but let me tap into your knowledge of the workings of our missions by virtue of your previous portfolio. How far up the hierarchy must this go for such a scheme to exist for 5 whole years?
So, first of all, let us keep in mind that the diplomatic mission is led by the topmost principal, in this case, our ambassador to the United States. So if you are looking at the hierarchy of responsibility which comes along with the accountability, it has to be the ambassador who represented Ghana during the time that this crime was committed. But beyond that, that is why in the nature of our governance structure, there has to be political oversight. So our current foreign minister is conducting a political oversight on our diplomatic mission. And so beyond the ambassador, what was the political oversight over this period of the conduct of such heinous crime by the former foreign minister with all the apparatus that are available to her to be able to make that conduct. I've worked in the foreign ministry. We have our own internal audit mechanisms and capacities that report directly to the foreign minister, and this could not have been going on for so long without us picking the signals and providing the political supervision and oversight to deal with it, and to deal with it in a manner that is not just about the level of the crime, but how it impacts on our diplomatic operations in a foreign country. Because keep in mind that it sends an incredible wrong signal to the international community about how our diplomatic missions are operating.
Absolutely. Just a few things I want us to piggyback off. I also want to tell our viewers that I'll take you live to the U.S. and then find out what, the speakings have been from staff, from, Ghanaians resident abroad, people who may have need for the services of the DC office, and coming to the realization that perhaps the application didn't go directly to the DC office, but went through a third party despite going to the DC office website. Now, but Mr. Bombande, before I get to that, you mentioned earlier the issue of motive, right? So in this case, what will the motive be?
It's a message of dealing sleaze and corruption that could be viewed as pervasive in our missions. And that is why the very first step is the robustness with which the foreign minister is responding with this, with obviously the approval of our president of the republic, because that is then when you begin to correct the dent. But let me say here that in diplomacy, in international relations, and in our bilateral and even multilateral engagements, there is an interconnection. There is always a link between what happens in one setting, in one mission with others. And so in the diplomatic corridors, the conversations that will be going on would be about this incident. And I think that people will be watching very closely to see how Ghana will respond, and respond speedily. And that is why the responses that we are seeing today, led by the minister, is absolutely the right step to take. And hopefully, the more we can know about what has happened, the more the accountability measures can be put in place.
Mr. Bombande, how about you hold your fire for me? I want to bring in now Della Michelle. She's a former broadcast journalist here at Media General and a resident in the DC area. She's not there at the moment, but she's joining us from the US. Della, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us, perhaps this afternoon where you are. But you have been, talking to people, finding out more information about the situation there. Talk to us about who you've spoken to and what you found.
So, Keminni, thank you so much for having me. Earlier, I did speak to one of my sources who wants to remain, anonymous at the Ghana embassy here in the DC area. And he was telling me that this particular directive came actually on a holiday. So today is a holiday in the U.S. It's Memorial Day. So, all the offices are not open today. So we do understand that there's going to be a crunch meeting with the acting head of mission tomorrow, Tuesday, at the office here in DC, where they're going to really understand what is going on. Even though the Foreign Affairs Minister has spoken, he has, written on his Facebook page and others, and it's been reported in Ghana. They are yet to have a meeting with the acting head of mission here in DC to find out really what is going on, even though there is the speculation that is an IT department and one Mr. Fred Kwati has been let go. And they're also looking at how it's going to affect other departments at the embassy. Mind you, there's a trade department, there's a defense department, there's a foreign affairs department here. And as we are talking to Dr. Bombardier, he did mention that this is going to affect not just people who are trying to get visas back home, but also businesses. So one of my sources told me that with this particular information coming in, he has been receiving multiple calls, first of all, from the ministry that he represents, that's the Ministry of Trade, asking how far, how far spread is this particular information? How is this going to affect some of the business investors that we're expecting into the country pretty shortly? How can we, give some level of confidence to these investors who are coming into the country? What can we say is going on with regard to security? What can we say to some of these people who are coming into this country that we've already given them, assurance that the government has already taken certain measures? When you go, you will be, taken care of, because all these international investment and international relations that you've been talking about, they all need to come through the DC embassy here. And of course, the acting head of mission is supposed to give them, let's say, the thumbs up in order they need to move into the country to fully do what they have to do. So everybody is moving in a very strategic way, because they don't want to assume too much. They don't want to assume too little, because again, today is a holiday. So most of the embassy is closed as of today, but they're expecting that on Tuesday, they're going to have a crunch meeting. All departments are going to have a crunch meeting with the acting head of mission, who is going to clarify, this. And as you've mentioned, that yes, the directive came in saying, using the word effective immediately, but then again, today is a holiday. So what is going to happen with these staff that have been laid or that have been suspended? How are they going to, is it going to take place from tomorrow after the meeting tomorrow? What are they going to say with regard to that? But I've also been talking to people who, as you rightly mentioned in your introduction, did apply for a Ghana visa, and they were taken to a third-party website. But for the people that I spoke to, they said they found it normal, because, for instance, if you're an American and you're trying to apply for a U.S. visa, you don't know what goes into, application of visas for these international countries. So they assumed that it was part of the process. They didn't see it as, oh, maybe this is an action that requires me to look further or probe further into it. They just assumed that it was part of the process that they had to go to. So one of the people that I spoke to said, yes, 2023, when she was applying for her visa, she did go to another site where she was made to make payment before referring back to the embassy's website. Mind you, here, if you apply for your visa, you have to send your passport to the embassy, So those were the things that they were not concerned about, because for those who have already applied, they need to get their passport sent to the embassy for them to know, whether they're going to get their visas or not.
Absolutely, Della. Thank you so much for talking to us. You go enjoy that holiday. We appreciate the report. And Della Michelle there, she's a former broadcast journalist here at TV3. She's now resident in the Washington, D.C. area. And let me just specify that the Washington, D.C. mission does not serve only residents in the Washington area, just for emphasis. Now, I want to come back to Mr. Bombande, because Mr. Bombande, just quickly, I wanted to end this conversation. Unfortunately, I do not have any more time to spend on it. But you talked about the issues of funds being audited. I just want to put it into perspective for us, right? How often or frequently did these internal audits happen?
So our auditing mechanism supervises and leads in the different missions to audit. and to be absolutely assured that the right things are done. You know, when funding is raised in our diplomatic missions, which is outside our public purse in Ghana, and when I was a Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs, we had a retention policy in which our diplomatic missions could maintain a certain percentage of the internally.
Indeed, Mr. Bombande, I apologize for cutting in. We'll have to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue that conversation and I'll give you a summary of what's been happening in courts. Don't go away. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is Ghana Tonight. We are live on TV3 and on 392.7 FM. I'm Keminni Amanor. Let's get straight into ending that conversation with Mr. Emmanuel Bombande, who's the former Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister. Mr. Bombande, again, I know we talked about the audit. You gave out a little bit of response on that, but turning attention to how this story is evolving. Some have said the minister's action to shut down the Washington, D.C. mission was rushed and not necessary. How do you respond to that based on your knowledge of how things work?
Well, first of all, you have to appreciate this. You cannot repair this damage without, first of all, cleaning the slate and resetting it. Because those who have that view that you have presented to me are looking at it in the limited sense of malfeasance that is monetary, and that would have accrued to the individual. Now, first of all, I disagree with that, because that individual must have had other accomplices to make it possible for him to be able to do what he did. That's the first instance. And secondly, that the nature of the criminality is an organized one. And when we describe organized crime, what is the meaning of organized crime? Organized crime means a group of people who are accomplices, who take advantage of certain weaknesses in a system to exploit it for their personal advantage. In this particular instance, monetary advantage. Now, I have described the level of the crime beyond just the money. And I've looked at it in terms of the diplomatic implication for Ghana in its bilateral relationships with the United States. And because we are talking about Washington, we also have other multilateral institutions that we are part of, such as the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, that our U.S. mission plays a critical role. Now, how do you expect the foreign minister to clear this this slate, reset it, not just because of us as Ghana, but also because of our conduct and assurances with these other multilateral agencies I have mentioned, so that at the end of the day, they are able to appreciate the seriousness with which we want to be able to move forward.
Indeed, Mr. Bombande, unfortunately, I'm out of time. That's all we have time for at this time. But thank you so much for your insight on the subject matter. Emmanuel Bombande is a former Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister. Now, just a quick look at some of the high-profile cases I spoke about in court today. One, the OSP suffered a loss in court today in regards to that issue around the MCE. So the High Court in Kumasi acquitted and discharged Alexander Kwabena Safo Kantanka, President Akufo-Addo's nominee for jobbing MCE in the Ashanti region. He was facing 26 counts of corruption in relation to public election in May of 2022. He appeared in a viral video, if you recall, demanding the return of monies he reportedly paid to assembly members to confirm his nomination. They didn't. The court held that the video did not establish that the monies were intended to influence the votes of the assembly members, which is why he's been acquitted and discharged. But also in court today is the SkyTrain saga, because for the first time, the former board chair of the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, Professor Christopher Miyakumfi, appeared before the High Court sitting. Remember, in the last two sittings, his counsel had asked that he couldn't be there because he was unwell. Today, he's well fit and very healthy, and so he appeared in court and entered a not guilty plea. He was therefore granted a 10 million cedi bail with two sureties after he pleaded not guilty to charges leveled against him, including deliberately causing financial loss to the state. He has been charged alongside the ex-CEO, Solomon Asamoah, with multiple counts of causing financial loss to the state, conspiracy to commit crime, and intentional dissipation of public funds. Is that the last one? The last one is a very famous case of the former boss of the National Signals Bureau, Kwabena Edubwahin. He and his spouse were both in court today. The court directed that lawyers in the case in his case, and 2 others not to engage in any plea bargain agreements until the prosecution has filed and accordingly served the accused persons with all the disclosures they rely on this case. So you're now caught up on all the high-profile cases and how things are playing out with them. The very first one is concluded, is done, but the last 2 is still evolving, very fluid, it's moving. We'll continue to update you here on TV3 and on 392.7 FM. This is Ghana Tonight. Always a pleasure coming your way. It's going to be you and me this week here on Ghana Tonight. Alfred has the week off. I'm Keminni Amanor. Bye-bye.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by
Flamingo Paint, superior durability.